It's my pleasure to have you all on my panel. Thanks for coming all the way to Istanbul and joining us here at Next by TRT World Forum. I'd like to start with you, Hind. So we are talking about safeguarding rights of women and children in the conflict zones. What we mean by safeguarding actually, like how can we promote the rights of women and children, not just protect them actually? Can you please tell us more about that, given the context of maybe in the regions where cultural norms present challenges to gender equality?
Thank you so much for the invitation to be here. I want to say first that actually every society has cultural norms that affect the experiences of women and children. So this is not just limited to a few places around the world. The second thing I want to mention is I want to actually acknowledge that right now the genocide in Gaza is, as we see, affecting more women and children than men. And of course, there are innocent men who are also being impacted. So as we see on our television screens that there are hotspots around the world, and we always see the most vulnerable people are the ones who experience the most hurt. And these are mothers, these are women, these are children, and these are people who are caring for their families. And I think it's really, one of the most important things is to be able to connect the impacted with the sources of power. And here, I think for us, for young people here, for people in the media, is to pass the mic, to be the voice of the voiceless if we can, and connect them to the sources of funding, the politicians, the elected officials who can make that change.
Actually, what you said is really important. Connecting impacted to the sources of power. Actually, that's exactly what your organization is doing in Afghanistan. Like Afghan Youth Ambassadors for Peace organization, you're actively working to empower young girls and women in Afghanistan. Tell us more about that. How are you integrating UN principles while trying to initiate local peace building in Afghanistan?
Thank you so much. It's really an honor to be here because like I said, Afghanistan has been more than 2 years. Afghan girls have been completely deprived from education, and it's really important that we bring Afghan voices to these platforms. So I want to talk about why we started our organization to begin with. So the reason when we started our Afghan Youth Ambassador for Peace organization in Afghanistan, it comes from personal story. My grandmother, my mom as well, they were both survivors of war in Afghanistan. My grandmother lost her husband, my grandpa during the Cold War, and we still don't have his body. We don't even have a grave for him. And during the Civil War, both my mom and aunties, they were stuck in the basement for 1 month, and she was shot and she was left to die. Fortunately, she survived. And this intergenerational trauma that they carried kind of led me to start an organization in my own village, in my own community, Laghman and Nangarhar, which is the eastern provinces of Afghanistan. So when I started my organization, the first thing, the first attitude or the first expression of a lot of young people is like, oh, it's just another NGO, or it's another youth activist coming and talking about peace and UN, all these big organizations, which made sense. Like, why do people don't trust the international organizations anymore? Why do people, especially young people, have lost trust despite going wars that we're having, and especially in the context of Afghanistan, where the country has been in conflict for more than 20 years and 4 decades, people, especially young people, lose hope very quickly. And people, especially international organizations, don't focus on intergenerational trauma and healing the trauma to begin the peace. So when we started our organization in Afghanistan, the first interaction we had, we went to one of our local villages and we said like, oh, this is our organization. We are funded by the UN, we're doing these big things. And this lady comes to me and he's like, I've lost both my sons in the war. I've lost my husband. All 3 of them were killed. I'm the only breadwinner in my family. So what is your organization in UN going to do for me, despite millions of money coming to countries like Afghanistan and other places? So that incident or that moment kind of made me realize when we talk about peace, what is peace actually means to people. It's not just the absence of war, it's not just the absence of conflict, but real peace means women having access to education, children having the right to have education, quality education, and basic safety. So that's when we started our organization. Our main focus is on two things: healing intergenerational trauma and localizing peace. Because any changes we need to start from the grassroots level. This is where the core, the conflict is, and that's where peace will come. And my organization is trying to bring the grassroots voices, because platform like TRT Forum or all these big platforms, a lot of young people don't have access to these platforms, especially at the grassroots level and conflict zone. There is passport privilege, there is visa discrimination, there is financial issues. So people who are dying in Gaza and people are stuck in Afghanistan, in South Sudan, in Ukraine, in many different countries, they don't have these opportunities to come here. And even English is such a language barrier. So our organization, what we're trying to do is bring these voices to this platform and show the reality on the ground. Because right now, all of you must feel really numb as well, because there's conflict in Gaza, there's conflict in Ukraine, and South Sudan, and Afghanistan, and you're kind of like figuring out which one to solve first. So every one of us kind of became so numb to the conflict that is going on, and that's what we're trying to do, not normalize what's happening in these countries, and to make sure we heal together, because a collective approach towards sustainable peace comes from everyone and not just one country.
Indeed, and very impressive one, what you said about why do people actually no longer trust international organizations or non-governmental organizations. Maybe that's the most sure example, UN failing to stop what's happening in Gaza at the moment. So it's very difficult to come up with an organization saying, yeah, I'm going to find all the cures for all the ills. So it's really tricky one, and I'm sure you have encountered some challenges as well. I'll ask them later. So Jonathan, we are talking about upholding girls, women, and children's rights in the conflict zones. And it all actually starts from a very early age. We need to go back to the education systems of the like worldwide education systems to maybe make them more friendly to upholding children's rights, right? How can we make sure those systems are promoting children's rights, especially young girls from an early age? Maybe you can talk about effective strategies.
Sure. First of all, this is my first time in Turkey, and I have absolutely loved it. It's so awesome. The Turkish people have been so friendly. It's great. But you know, in life, we only know what we know, and we only know what we're taught. At a young age, your brain is a sponge. So whatever you are taught at a young age, you're going to tend to hold on to, and you're going to tend to believe it. So I think it's really important that in the school systems, learning has to be the priority, but then also understanding diverse cultures, because the world's a big place, and while the earth is not physically flat, we have access. For example, I'm from Louisiana, United States, but somehow I'm here in Turkey. So I have to be able to understand a little bit of the Turkish culture. I have to maybe try to see things from a different perspective and respect it and not be disrespectful and have an appreciation for it. But I have to learn those things. And so kids need to also understand that people from different countries can be your friend. And I think if you get it right with the next generation or the current generation of children, you can build a very unique world of collaboration in today's fast-paced global society. And it's imperative that kids learn how to work together. And the biggest issue I have when we have conflict is because people can't figure out how to work together. And it takes having uncomfortable conversations, and it takes hard work, and it takes some people get a lot of money and they do nothing with it, or they steal it, or there's a lot of corruption. So there has to be accountability in these education systems that are receiving money and supposed to do good things and supposed to teach, but then they don't. So I would just say there needs to be a very big focus on, the world's a big place. We need to learn how to live together and work together, because we can't, it's 2024. We can't continue on for the rest of our lives in conflict all over the world. This is just, it's out of control.
True, indeed. And maybe going back to our very first educations, maybe the problem was always that distinction between us and them. there was always some them and us.
And the media doesn't help with that, because the media paints a picture and wants you to believe that all people of one group is bad, and all of these people are evil and terrible, and it just makes it worse. And so I think like what TRT is doing by having a diverse group of people talking is very healthy for the world to see, because it puts different people in the same place talking about things that might not be so comfortable.
Yeah, true, indeed. And I'd like to come back to your hand, talking about maybe more concrete examples through successful empowering marginalized women in conflict-affected areas. What are those? You've been studying these issues for many years now. What can you tell us more about them?
Yeah, so jumping off of what Jonathan said, I think when you have a diverse group of people together, we have to understand, okay, the world is diverse. We accept this diversity, but what is pluralism? Pluralism is the act of engaging that diversity in a way that respects the differences of other people, and then understanding, okay, we're all in the same world together and there are some challenges. Maybe we can work together to address those challenges. So to give a concrete example, I was part of a program before the pandemic, and it was a diverse group of people from the United States, from Belgium, from France, from Morocco and Tunisia. And we would get together. It was held under the auspices of the Jimmy Carter Foundation. And we would get together throughout the year and we would discuss these issues that are affecting particularly young people in terms of extreme ideologies that are affecting our communities. And the really beautiful thing about this project that was put together by my friend Dr. Huda Abadi is that she brought artists and filmmakers and painters and educators and journalists and media makers and religious scholars and members of parliament and imams all together to sit and discuss these issues, as well as young people. Young people were also involved. And I think this is the important thing. And again, she was able to connect some of us with sources of funding. It's this idea that everyone is coming at it from their perspective and they're able to see what's around them. But when you're able to bring people together and you say, all right, diversity is what's existing, so how can we use that diversity to make a better place? That's when I think we get some dynamism and moving the dial on these issues.
Yeah, bringing every single party into the conversation.
Yes, exactly, and especially the most impacted and most marginalized of these people. It can't just be the people who already have the voice, like media and religious scholars. It has to be people on the ground who are doing these grassroots work.
Yeah, Hila, saying on that maybe, you're also trying to bring parties, sometimes religious or tribal leaders, into the conversation to empower young girls in Afghanistan. And I'm sure there are challenges given the girls are banned from secondary schools since the Taliban takeover now. Tell us more about them.
So the way we approach when it comes to engaging all the stakeholders, it's really important to have a conflict-sensitive approach to it, because when we go to the ground in Afghanistan to very local level, there's completely a different world. People are on survival mode when I say that. They don't know about fancy words, they don't know about big organizations, they don't know anything, but what we know is that they have talent for peace building. They're peace builders in their own community, but not in a traditional sense. They are like doing informal and formal peace building work in their own community. So when we went to Afghanistan, what we did is that empower the young people within the community. So if I have the privilege, because I've studied abroad, I lived abroad, so if I go back to Afghanistan, or like anyone who have lived abroad, so we will not know the context of the country that well comparing to the people who actually lived in that community. So what we did is that we went to the local community and brought the stories of the survivals to like come here and work on the issues that you want to work on. So we provide capacity building training for them, we provide networking training for them, we provide them money. It's like, okay, this is everything you need, because do a peace building dialogue within your community. They know the religious leaders better than us, they know the community leaders better than us, they know the tribal leaders better than us. give the opportunity to the local talent on the ground. That's our approach. That's what localization means, is that give that platform that they deserve. Because I remember one of our two trainees that we used to work with, they had to travel from one village to another village to go to a mosque just to get online for our trainings. Sometimes we are also a very local organization. We don't have these big funding. But when we talk about digital gap, the not having no electricity, and it's 2024, having these not basic necessities and skills and even resources on the ground is very difficult. So when we're reaching out to religious leaders, tribal leaders, we consider them as part of the community. So that mindset is like me versus them. It's gonna backfire really quickly. It's really important that when we bring young people and older people, we have to have an intergenerational dialogue here. They've been through a lot, we've been through a lot. We bring our own experiences, they bring our own experiences. What we do, the most important thing is to provide safe space for the dialogue. Is bring them all together in a respective ways, like, okay, this is an issue, you need to talk about this, listen to each other, have an active listening to the traumas, the common traumas everyone been through. That's why we're focusing a lot on healing. So the survivals on the ground is our healers as well. That's what we're trying to do. Bring them all the resources that they need so they can heal their own community. And my country is healing as well. Unfortunately, the issues when women and girls are completely deprived from the education, and this is something we need to focus right now and highlight this as well, because it's 2024, like millions of girls in one country is completely out of education and doesn't have any basic rights. But then when we come to these big international platforms, we consider ourselves as an educational activist without having a collective approach. So avoiding selective activism is really important if we want to have a collective approach to these. And that's what we do in Afghanistan as well with religious leaders and tribal leaders. Having me versus them type of mindset and attitude will not work. What's important is that active listening and providing them the safe spaces, and that has been working on for us. But it's really important to acknowledge that these issues that we're talking about, gender-based violence, education, early forced child marriage, these are social issues which needs a generation of trainings. We need quality education for this. We need young people to be supported on the ground, and we need the community healing. We need a collective community healing for this. So we're working on the ground, and hopefully we can see progress slowly and slowly. But again, it's a social issue. It will take time. And as a young activist and as young peace builder, having patience is really important when you're working on these issues at the same time, because sometimes it drains you as well if you're working on so many traumatizing things and you're a young person working 9 to 5, you have educational responsibility, you have family responsibility. So for us, it's also a lot to take. So having a clear balance is really important as well on how we're healing ourselves and how we are healing our community.
Yeah. Quite interesting, actually. Here with Hila, we are talking about lack of access to maybe digital sources and also all worldwide available education tools in Afghanistan. But on the other side of the world, in the US, for example, there's too much access to those tools, and some children, maybe many children, have been taken hostage by the social media with privacy on question, access to safe and accurate information on question, maybe disinformation, and they're really young people. It's really risky. Your thoughts?
We're so blessed in the United States. I mean, it really is the truth. We have so much access to whatever you want. That it's gotten to the point where people have started to do the most insane things. You have grown adults exposing children to changing their genders, having gender mutilation at a young age, or taking hormones to try to become, if you're a boy, transition from a boy to a girl. You have people fighting in schools over which bathroom to use. Do the boys get to use the girls' bathroom, and do the girls get to use the boys' bathroom? So it's gotten to a point of complete absurdity. And it's really drifted away from where it should be and where it could be. There's just been an overflow of access to information, and it's been used in so many good ways, but then also in so many terrible ways. And as far as privacy is concerned, I don't, by show of hands, does anyone use TikTok? Just TikTok? Okay, perfect. Hands down. By show of hands, does anybody do Google search? Google search? Okay, so hands down. We all use TikTok, we all use Google search, we're on the internet. I don't know that privacy is actually real. They keep trying to implement things, but somehow it's as if people, they know what you're looking and then they advertise to you, they know what you're talking about and then the ads show up. And it's really scary because you have people targeting little kids in the United States, and it's really sad. And it's like, on one hand, on the opposite side of the world, you have children with no access to internet, no computer. They don't even have a safe environment to learn in. And then the place that should be a safe environment that has all the tools and resources is sort of becoming just pure insanity.
Yeah, maybe you mentioned TikTok. These maybe concerning different lifestyles and identities, you mentioned about which bathroom to use kind of stuff. Children are confused. What can be done to fix that?
Well, first of all, a child relies on someone else to instruct them and to teach them. If you grow up in Turkey, you're going to learn the Turkish language as a child. If you grow up in the United States, you're probably going to learn English. If you grow up in Mexico as a child, you're going to learn Spanish because that's what's all around you. And so somebody has to put their foot down and say enough is enough. They have to be very definitive. It's just, parents have to be very involved, and then we see the destruction of family now, and this is a global phenomenon where people are waiting later in life to get married. They're maybe having one kid versus a lot of kids, or opting to have no kids. And so the role of family is being replaced by the school systems, at least in the United States. And so the teachers become the parents, and they're raising the children, and the teachers instructing the children on their personal viewpoints of life and their ideologies. And so the root is where are the parents teaching and raising the children, because the teacher should teach the child how to read, how to write, how to do math, maybe learn some science, but not about what type of sexual preferences do you have at 9 and 8 years old. I mean, it's silly, but the root is where are the parents, because the parents are not as active as they could be. And then the government has to stop. They're pushing this. There's policy to push this, especially even in women's sports. They're saying that now men are allowed to compete in women's sports, high school and college levels. So it's just I think more people have to rise up as leaders and say, I'm not okay with this.
Yeah, indeed. I have wonderful guests, and you have wonderful insights. And unfortunately, we need to wrap now. So before we go, I'd like to hear your final words, maybe a message to the international community from next YTRT World Forum. What should be done by international leaders or policymakers to uphold more women and children rights in the conflict zones, or maybe not only in conflict zones, we're talking about the situation in US. Your final words, very quickly.
Well, I'm also from the U.S., and I have to say that I'm very inspired by the young people on U.S. college campuses, university campuses, and not just in the U.S., but all over the world as well. I think the important thing is to listen to what young people, to what women, to what the most marginalized people are saying about their own experiences and about what actually is their solution. Because as we've been hearing from Hila, people have the solution. There are just structural barriers in order to find the opportunity to make that solution happen. And I think it's really exciting and dynamic to be in a space like this where young people have come from around the world to beautiful Istanbul to share about their issues and their solutions, and to build with each other. Because really, I know the name of the forum is Next, but I actually think it should be called Now.
Oh, that's great. And from you, Hila, very final words quickly.
2 words for the international communities: accountability and implementation. We already know what we need. I think most of the time when we come to forums, we ask the same recommendation again and again. It's so repetitive. Then we draft another policymaker research, and then we do another forum again and again. What we need, have these recommendations. We have the solutions already, thousands of solutions, thousands of research, thousands of stories, survival stories. You can Google anywhere, you have access to social media, you can hear what's happening. What we don't have is action, implementation, and accountability. If we are targeting international community, that's what they lack. They have everything on their hand. They have all the solution. They don't need any more solution. What they need is implement the current solution that they have and accountability. And the second message for the young audience who are present at the TRT forum, because I know most of you might be students, and I think this is the right time to build your profile and expand your portfolio. When you're coming to these forums, you guys are in a very privileged conditions right now, in situation right now. Use every opportunities in these forums, because thousands of young people, thousands of women, like in countries like Afghanistan, young people like in Gaza, in South Sudan, in Ukraine, don't have these access of opportunities that you guys have in these special forums. So use every resources that you have, make network, make connection, and then when you go home, take one individual action that can help another person. You can take your selfies, you can post it on your Instagram, on your TikTok, that you attended a good forum, but what's one thing you can take as on individual basis as a human being when you go back home? Take individual action, donate to an organization, become a mentor. You guys have quality education in Istanbul, in here right now. Use your education, use your platform to help people and women in countries like Afghanistan and Gaza, because you are the generation that we need help, and you can support the younger generation who are in conflict zone in countries like Afghanistan and Gaza and Ukraine and in different countries. So use every resources you guys have right now and use these opportunities wisely.
Indeed. Sorry, the hardest one,
So,
after a very good one.
Wow. You know, the burden of responsibility falls, sometimes we want to put it on the presidents or the leaders, but at the end of the day, it falls upon you and you and you and myself and you. And we have to do things we can to improve the world around us. I may not be able to have any effect in, say, I don't know, Australia. I might have no influence, but where I live at, I can make a difference in my community. And I think to what she's saying about the local communities, you are all able to make some sort of difference in your own local community. And I think it's okay to focus on that and to do that. So if you want to see some sort of change in the world, make the change happen where you're at. And that's okay. So thank you guys so much. I love Turkey. It's been so nice.
Very inspiring indeed. Jonathan Koppel, Hind Makki, Hila Yun, I thank you very much for joining us here at next YTRT World Forum here in Istanbul. And I thank you, our audience, for your attention, for being with us here. Now we'll go for a short break, just 5 minutes. Then we'll be back here with wonderful sessions. Thank you.
Let's go!